guys, it's the repeater from Tower of Technobabble, and we're getting ready to do our next show, and I thought it might be cool for you to look behind the scenes and see how the magic happens. In fact, Conduit is getting TowerBot ready right now as we speak.
Approaching Singularity.
Got it.
Avengers.
Got it.
Bacon.
Need it.
Batman.
Got it.
Bigfoot.
Got it.
Cartoons.
Got it.
Catwoman.
Got it.
Comics.
Got it.
Conspiracies.
Need it.
Doctor Who.
Got it.
Green Lantern.
Got it.
Hoaxes.
Need it.
Mars.
Got it.
Monkeys.
Got it.
Movie reviews.
Got it.
Myths.
Got it.
NASA.
Need it.
Oceanography.
Got it.
Politics.
That.
Religions.
Need it.
Science.
Got it.
Sci-fi.
Do you mean Siffy?
Space probes.
Got it.
Sports.
Screw that.
Star Wars.
Got it.
Star Wars prequels.
Oh God, no.
Superman.
Got it.
Transformers.
Got it.
Troll Hunter.
Got it.
Twilight.
That.
UFOs.
Got it.
Urban
Boy,
legends.
that
Got it.
sounds
Weird tales.
complicated.
Got it.
Weirdos.
Got it.
Tune in
Wonder
at
Woman.
www.toweroftechnobabble.com and see what happens.
Hi, this is Mark, and you're listening to episode 27 of Nerdology, sponsored by CSO, the Cult Fanzine. And my very special guest today is Mr. Ben Schneider. Hey, Ben.
Hello. In honor of Milo Clancy, let me just say howdy.
Wow.
'Cause
that sounded authentic.
That's what all of us here in America say.
Yeah, of course.
America, apostrophe America. That's how we actually spell it here. So I'm guessing that the reaction I had to watching Milo Clancy is kind of like how you guys had watching Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins, right?
Yeah.
Nah, not quite there.
Like
Good
fingernails
try.
down a blackboard.
Hello, Mark. Thank you for letting me come by. This is amazing.
That's quite all right. It's my pleasure. Now, Ben
Yes.
is one of the presenters of the amazing Tower of Technobabble podcast.
Oh, shucks.
Would you like to give the guys out there a little taste of what they could expect if they download an episode?
If you download an episode, you'll hear about an hour of that crap. It's Tower of Technobabble is basically a make-believe radio show that that I do with two friends, Paul and Dave, and we just get together for an hour every week and talk about whatever is on our mind. And we have a robot who will answer your questions about life, and It basically keeps us off the streets and out of that drug culture that everybody is so worried about these days. So yeah.
I think you're underselling it a bit there, Ben. It's a great show. It's very funny.
Thank you.
And you guys kind of cover quite a wide area of subjects. Even go into a little bit of amateur dramatics as well.
Yeah, we've got the theater bug lately. We'll get a fundamentalist Christian comic book and we'll reenact it to hilarious results. I like to think so. Yeah,
That's one of my favorite bits, I have to say.
Thank you very much. It's toweroftechnobabble.com if you're interested at all.
Yes.
Come and hear me ramble about Bigfoot. And
It's on iTunes as well, so search it out. It's well worth a listen.
oh, thank you so much.
That's quite all right. My pleasure. Now, the reason we've got you on the show today, we thought we would like to do a show all about Doctor Who recons or reconstructions.
Yes. Mark, what are recons and why do they make people so sleepy?
Now, recons, for the uninitiated out there, you will kind of probably won't know what the hell this is all about, so we'll try and explain it.
Yes.
Back in the 60s and 70s, the BBC in their infinite wisdom decided that rather than keep all these classic episodes of Doctor Who in their archive, they thought they should reuse the very expensive videotapes that they're stored on again. So they systematically wiped all of the episodes, pretty much decimating most of Hartnell and Troughton's episodes in the process. So some of those have been recovered. More famously, in the last few months, we've had a couple of Troughton episodes come back. But the only way we could enjoy those stories before they were recovered was to hear them on audio. So way back in the 60s, hardcore fans, because they didn't have video recorders, they would get their audio recorders, their reel-to-reel tape recorders, and plug them into their TVs and record the shows straight off the air. So that's the reason why we still have the audio of these shows now.
Can I just say how unbelievable that is? I mean, think about that for a minute. I
Yeah.
mean, this. I mean, the show had basically just started, and people were already such fans that they were getting their entire families to be quiet. They would put their tape recorder in front of their TV and record this every week. And I remember when I first heard that there were audio that well, I guess that you could actually listen to the audio from all of these missing episodes. I remember thinking to myself, why the hell would they get rid of all the visual pictures but keep the audio? And when I found out that it was because of fans doing this, I got a little lump in my throat.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
Because there are heroes in life.
Yeah.
There are. You've got your teachers, you've got your policemen, the loyalty of a fine dog, but there's got to be something to be said about these wonderful people that preserved this history for us. And by the way, I always hear about these people who did it, but I never, I don't know who they are. And so I've got a list of names here. We got guys like David Holman, David Butler, James Russell, Alan Wilson, Richard Landon, and Graham Strong, who apparently was smart enough to directly wire his tape recorder directly into the TV set, so he didn't have to have his family being quiet. But I mean, why is there no statue dedicated to these guys? Cause
There should be.
Because this is the only way that we have of hearing these amazing stories that don't exist anymore. Maybe, question mark. So, yeah.
But thanks to them, every single episode exists in audio format. Now, obviously, they were made as a TV show, so that doesn't always translate as a particularly good listen. So back in the 90s, fans started to create reconstructions by using something called telesnaps, which the guy that took the majority of those was a guy called John Cura.
Can you explain what a telesnap is? Because I didn't know what that was when I first heard of it.
So way back in the 60s, because video recorders were not really readily available, you'd have actors and directors who would want some kind of visual record of the work that they'd done. So they would hire him to sit in front of a TV and capture photos of the action as it happens. So you've got most of the 60s shows are captured in this fashion by this guy taking photos, and that's what helps to make these reconstructions.
Directly off the TV. And it's funny because there are many episodes that don't even have the snaps, because I think that a lot of them came in the third season of Doctor Who, because I think the producer at the time saw it as this unnecessary expense. So to make these slideshow, and basically that's kind of what they look like, is your simplest basic recon is you take the fan-made audio and you basically do a slideshow of these snaps. And did you mention the companies yet that were doing this?
Not yet. I mean,
all right.
The main one that most people tend to refer back to is a company called Loose Cannon.
Loose Cannon, yes. Heroes in and of themselves also.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Now, my friend Peter Weber would absolutely kill me if I didn't mention him. He makes his own recons for his own personal viewing pleasure.
Really?
And he spends hours getting the timing just right for when the slides change. So he decided he wanted to have every single episode of Doctor Who on his DVD shelf, which meant making his own recons. Now you can imagine how excited he was when he found out that there might be one or two episodes coming back.
Right.
So he's, apart from wanting to throw himself under the nearest bus because he'd wasted all those hours on making recons, I'm sure he's probably very happy about the prospect of getting some more missing episodes back.
Can I ask you, do you know why he wanted to make his own as opposed to just getting something that came from one of these companies that made it, like the Loose Cannon?
I think he's quite a creative person, and and I think, like a lot of Doctor Who fans, I might be generalising slightly.
Go on, dude.
Possibly he has a very fixed idea of what he wants and would rather create his own thing. I think a lot of Doctor Who fans are quite creative people. So he wanted to make his own rather than perhaps getting something from someone else.
I can applaud that, because it is exactly that type of personality that made everyone in the house shut up for 25 minutes every week so they could put their tape recorder in front of it. That still amazes me.
How would that go down in your household, Ben, if you asked your family to shut up while you recorded something?
Well, here's the funny thing, and I think this is why this kind of touched me in a special way, is I actually used to do that when I was a kid.
Right.
Because we didn't have a VCR until I was much older. And I would put my tape recorder in front of the TV, and I would tape things like whenever Star Wars would be on, or a Star Trek here and there. And so when I heard that kids were doing this in the early 60s, just like I was doing in the 80s, that I just felt this weird kind of connection over the years, and I was like, good on you, son. Good going. So.
Now, at least you were lucky being in the States, being able to, if you were a Doctor Who fan, you were never more than perhaps a day away from seeing another episode, because they used to have all the classic shows on a loop, really, didn't they?
Well, I didn't get them until later because the city that was closest to me, they didn't really buy the episodes. Our public station didn't really buy the episodes from Britain until I think 1989 is when they first started doing them. So whenever they did get them, then every Saturday they would show a complete Tom Baker story, and like Robot would all be in one night, and then the next night would be Ark in Space. And then for my town, or for my city where they were doing this, they would just go through the Tom Baker years and then go back to Tom Baker. So for a long time, that's all that I ever saw. But
oh, you poor thing. I mean, bear in mind, in the UK, we were lucky if we got a repeat at all.
Wow.
So even though we kind of got the episodes first, if you missed it, then that was pretty much it. You weren't going to see it again until video recorders came along.
So did you ever try to do audio recording?
No, I must admit, I know we used to have a reel-to-reel tape recorder that I used to play around with and kind of make little radio shows on and things like that, but I never thought to use it to record the TV.
I don't know why it occurred to me. I think it's because I really liked the music in some of these movies, and I just wanted a way to hear it again. And then I began to realize that if I did dialogue too, so I don't know, but it's because of guys who think that way, and then through their generosity, the tapes were kind of passed over and to other fans who would make copies, and that's why we got them now. And then that led to this team called Loose Cannon and other guys like your friend Peter, who would take whatever kind of surviving image that they could find. Like they had the telesnas, but they would also use things like production photos that the makeup guys would take, or press shots, or they would use surviving clips. Yeah, which also
that's the thing. One of the things that strikes you about watching a reconstruction, when you start watching them, you get used to seeing these still images. So you kind of, it's not the easiest watch to begin with, but if you're a fan of classic TV, it's something that you can kind of program your brain to accept. Because 60s TV is slightly slower paced than modern stuff anyway. So if you factor in the element of not actually having any moving images as well, it can be a bit of an ask first time round for someone to really understand it and appreciate it. But it's quite... What's the best way I can put it?
You really got to be a fan to watch this.
Yeah, but you get a real thrill as well if you're watching a still image and suddenly it sparks into life, albeit for maybe a few seconds.
Now that is something that fascinates me too, because apparently not only were people putting their tape recorders in front of their TV, some people actually had 8mm movie cameras.
Yeah,
and they would take film clips and they only lasted like a few seconds. But you would suddenly get a few seconds of Patrick Troughton moving in Power of the Daleks, and then it would just stop, and you're like, why did it stop?
Just gives you that fleeting glimpse, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh. So, but I guess the point I was trying to make was, no offense to your friend Peter, because I've not seen any of his recons. All I've seen are the Loose Cannon stuff, but especially in the stories where no telesnaps survive, stories like the Myth Makers or the Space Pirates, they go to these other. They go to some very clever ways of giving some sort of a visual image. I think
that's what sets them apart from the other recon guys.
Yeah. There was a company called Joint Venture. I've seen a couple of those. Those were kind of more slideshow driven.
Yeah.
And Loose Cannon, they've really kind of embraced CGI. And
they even make props and things, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah. Like, they will make a prop, and they'll specially film one of them, like, holding it and moving it around. Like, there's a scene in Galaxy 4 where they basically show somebody's arm in a black coat, and he's got a fancy ring on that looks like the first Doctor's ring, and he's using a screwdriver to mess up the air conditioning and the alien ship, which I think is the episode that was brought back, actually. So they don't even need it anymore. But so my favorite thing that they do is, say you have a story like Mission to the Unknown, where there aren't really any photos left, and there aren't any photos even of the actors who were in costume. So they will get the cast list, and they will look at other TV shows that were made around the same time that these same actors starred in. And using Photoshop, they will cut off their heads in one picture. They'll find a picture of someone wearing the appropriate spacesuit, and in Photoshop, they'll put it together, and then they'll make a background image of a jungle or a spaceship set, and they'll cut out the head and the body, put it on top. It's kind of like making paper dolls. Do you guys, was that a thing for you? Okay.
Yeah.
Where you basically have these layers built up. And so there's these paper doll shots. And a lot of times they're very obvious, but dagnabbit, they really, really try hard, and it looks great, and it gives you a real sense of what's going on. And love it.
And, I mean, they'll do things like, I think I'm right in saying for the Myth Makers, they actually got the original plans for the Trojan horse and built a model of it.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I don't know if they built it or if someone else had built it, but somehow they were able to film a model of the horse, and so they could give it a little bit of movement. And that's the thing. Whenever you're watching these recons, the slightest bit of movement, like a little hand wave or maybe a zoom across a still photo, it gives it a little bit of life. And after sitting there watching still photos, just getting that little bit of life makes it so much more engaging in a weird way, you know?
It's like a little boost that kind of carries you on to watch the rest of it. But no, I think they really go above and beyond to create something that is interesting to watch.
But we should point out. I was going to say, we should point out they're not for everyone. Like, if you have someone who's not into Doctor Who and make them watch it, they're going to cry.
They would want to kill you.
Yes. You've really got to be a fan, I think. This is a specialized thing, man. But
I think if you're relatively new to the old series and you've become interested in watching the older shows and you see some of the ones that still exist, if you can tolerate the pacing of those stories and you actually enjoy those, you might be interested in recons.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth a look
if you've got
interest in it.
If you are a completionist, you'll want this, because, you know, we're Doctor Who fans. And
Doctor Who fans, completionists? No.
We have very visible gaps on our bookshelves. I am looking at my bookshelf now. There are gaps. There's cold air coming through those gaps. I need something to fill it in with, man. So, and Loose Cannon has really kind of helped keep the history going, you know. And by the way, we were talking about heroes. Got a list of the Loose Cannon guys here. So we need to read the list of heroes here. There's Dean Rose, Russ Port, Derek Hanley, Stuart Palmer, Steve England, that's a great name, Chris Petz, Liz Skinner, and Rick Brindle, who was the guy who actually started Loose.
He was the founder, wasn't he?
Yes, back in December of 97. And his very first recon was Macra Terror, because I think Doctor Who magazine had put out an article, and they had.
I think that was pretty much the only one he had the telesnaps for, wasn't it?
Yeah. So he was basically scanning in the telesnaps out of the magazine, making a slideshow, and people liked it, and they were like, please give us some more, and he did. So love it.
You can see a real progression from the very early ones to the later ones. Obviously, as technology advances, they're able to do more and more, even to the point of adding CGI, which works very well in the majority of cases that I've seen.
Yeah, they look great in. They use CGI a lot in Dalek stories, because Daleks they're not that. They're kind of static, but they move back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's easier to animate, but it just that little bit of movement makes so much difference and sucks you in, man. Oh, I love it. Oh, and probably the biggest thing we should point out about loose cannon, you're probably sitting there thinking, I'm interested. How much would it cost for me to get... It costs you nothing. It's made by fans for fans. It's absolutely free. But there is a catch. There is a catch.
Yes, yeah.
Tell them what it is, Mark.
Well, obviously this footage is copyright the BBC, and although they probably wouldn't be that impressed at people breaking their copyright, I think they have a bit of understanding. So they kind of, I don't know if it's set in stone, but they agreed that Loose Cannon could provide copies of their recons as long as they weren't taking money from them, as long as they weren't making a profit.
Right.
But the caveat is that they have to be recorded onto VHS tape.
You cannot get these officially through any kind of digital means through Loose Cannon. So they have a fan network called dubbing sites, and essentially you get a blank videotape, you mail it to this site, you say which one you want, they will copy it onto the videotape and send it back to you, which is really funny when you consider the age of instant download that we all live in, you know. And, do you think we should point out that some people put these up on YouTube? I mean, you can check them out,
I think
you know.
in this day and age, it gets to the point where if you want to see something, it's going to be there on the net somewhere.
Yeah. But if you want to support the cause, you know, dust out your VCR. And so, well, anyway, Mark, I wanted to talk to you about the Recons because I am a big fan of the other podcast that you're on, the Blue Box podcast.
Oh, that thing, yeah.
Yes, the finest in Doctor Who podcasts. And
thank you.
I love it. Hello, JR. Hello, Lee. Hello, Simon. I thought that you all lived in the exact same house and you would all be here, but I've been told that is not true.
Back in the very early days, we did used to convene to my living room and record, which other podcasters that I've spoken to since found that to be incredibly weird. And
I thought it was
some
charming.
Sort of crazy idea.
It was charming because you were all
we
there.
used to sit here and have a cup of tea and some biscuits and chocolate and stuff.
You guys actually put out a couple of little video clips of you guys recording.
Oh, yeah.
And I was telling JR that I wish they would have taken the camera back to your bookshelves because I wanted to see what sort of toys and decorations that you had on it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nerd palace here. There's lots of Doctor Who related stuff.
Really? Well,
So,
I actually have a little dapple ice warrior sitting here next to me.
Wow,
he's my podcast bestie, right there.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, the good old fashioned proper ice warrior who doesn't take off his suit, you know. So, but anyway, the point I was making was I began to notice on the podcast that you were mentioning for about 3 weeks straight. You had mentioned that you had been watching the Daleks Master Plan Recon.
Yeah,
and it seemed like
it probably takes about 3 weeks to watch. To be fair, it's a long story.
But the thing I thought was funny was nobody else on the show was sort of asking you about it. Like, oh, how is that going? What do you think of that story? Is it easy to, you know? It's like you would say it, and it would be this passing comment, and I was like, oh, talk about Dalek Master Plan, and they weren't. So I contacted you and saying, so you want to talk about
look what happened.
Recons? That might be fun. Because I am a huge fan of them. I absolutely love them because 60s Doctor Who is my favorite era. And I just adored the way the stories went. I adore the acting. I love a spaceship on a string. Love it. Give me that every time. And there's
plenty of that.
And Troughton is probably my favorite Doctor. Hartnell, I love him too. And there's just something about those stories. They're so good. John
The
Nathan,
Daleks' master plan is epic, isn't it?
It is
in every sense of the word.
It is truly an epic story because the ending does not let you down.
No, that's true.
The ending is unbelievable, and you compare it to other quote unquote Doctor Who epics like Trial of a Time Lord. The ending is so, and then there's like Key to Time series. It's like they put the Key to Time together, nothing happens, it just gets spread back out. But the end of Dalek Master Plan, it is probably the most tense. Episode 12 is probably the most tense episode of Doctor Who that, especially in the 60s. Speaking for arguments can be made for Androzani later, but if we're looking at the black and white era, Episode 12 of Dalek Master Plan is on the edge of your seat, and that's just from the soundtrack.
It's pretty bleak as well, isn't it?
Unbelievable. So hey, what should we do? Do you want to talk about, like, we were emailing, and you had named 4 of them that you hadn't seen, and so we all watched them. How do you want to go over them all, or do you just want to talk about how great Dalek Master Plan is for about 3 hours?
Well, I think we should start with that one because that's what kicked it off.
Okay. Oh man, how did you first see it?
Well, I had the audio CD version with the narration.
Oh yeah, we should explain that. All these fan recordings from the 60s, they were being tossed around and copied, and at some point in the 90s, the BBC realized that, hey, there's something here that we could probably make better. And I don't know the background story, but they're amazing. They basically took all of the copies of these fans things, and they found the best parts, and they remastered them, put them together. Yeah, and they're so good. Love them.
So they've been around for a while. So you can listen to it in audio form with an actor describing what's happening on the screen.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the same as being able to sit and watch it. So I thought, well, I'll hunt out the Recon and see what it's like. And it's stunning. It's really well put together.
Was this your first one that you had ever seen? Recon?
I think I'd seen. I'm trying to remember if I'd seen one before that. I don't think I'd sat through a whole one, but I had just kind of investigated and seen the odd clip here or there online. But this was the first one I really sat down and wanted to watch the whole way through.
It's funny. Dalek Master Plan is one of those ones that we don't have the tele-snaps for. So Loose Cannon had to make the photos directly from scratch using that paper doll method or CGI. And something that I have noticed, if you compare one that doesn't have tele-snaps to a Recon that does have tele-snaps, the one where they have to make the images has a little bit more energy to it. It seems to have more movement, and I think it's because when you have the telesnaps, you're sort of locked into certain scenes and certain images. Yeah. And when you have to create the images, you can
make it look how you think it should be rather than
And you can purposely create an image to show something pivotal that is happening, whereas with the telesnap, it's just sort of like a random chance. Usually a telesnap will take the picture a second before something really great happens or a second after, But whenever they're making them from scratch, they can actually show the moment, and and they can kind of make more of them, and it's almost faster paced. But at the same time, though, we should also point out that Dalek's Master Plan is actually really, really good, and that helps having a good story with.
It is. I mean, Terry Nation has a bit of a reputation for repeating his stories quite a bit, but this, I think, is still quite fresh. It's probably helped by, I think it was Dennis Spooner wrote some of the episodes as well.
Yeah, he wrote. I think they did half. Like Terry Nation did the first bits. I think. I actually have it written down. He did episode 1 through 7, 1 through 5 and 7, and then Spooner did episode 6, and then 8 through 12. So, and those early ones, the Terry Nation ones, they're really good.
Yeah,
Really good.
I think you're in for a treat if you like the sort of 60s Dalek stories. They're still quite manipulative and scheming, so you've got that kind of interesting rather than just being quite boring soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got this really great character in Mavic Chen, played by Kevin Stoney, who just, even in audio form, just really captures your attention.
Yeah, when I first saw a photo of Mavic Chen, it was in some magazine in the 90s. It was sort of a look back at the early years type of
It's
an
an unusual look.
I thought he was an alien. I didn't know he was supposed to be human. And so, but man, how do you want to do this? You just want to go through episode by episode? Or I can talk about this literally for hours.
We've got about 20 hours. That's fine.
Oh my
it's
God.
No problem.
Well, it starts out with Dalek Master. No, I'm sorry. It starts out with Mission to the Unknown.
Yeah.
Which is famous for not having the Doctor in it. And it concerns two space pilots who are shot down, and they're trying to find they hear a rumor that the Daleks are there, and they're trying to send back information that the Daleks are there, and they're making something called a master plan, but again, the really interesting thing to watch it is to keep in mind that there are no images that sort of survive. So there are some press images of the aliens, of the alien delegates.
Yeah.
But stuff like Mark Corey and Garvey and Laurie, they had to make those from scratch. So they're taking the actors' heads from different TV shows and putting them in, and it just works really, really well,
The other thing that marks out Dalek's master plan in terms of Doctor Who history is it's the first time Nicholas Courtney makes an appearance.
Yes, he shows up in the episode 1 of the proper story. The Nightmare begins, and he's playing a character called Brett Vyrne. And I have a big, huge question. Why is Sarah Keenan considered a companion and Brett Vyrne is not?
Yeah, I find that weird.
It's like, Sarah Keenan comes in murdering Brett Vyrne, and yet,
her own brother. Yeah, spoilers.
But yet she gets like the accolades in the books as like the Doctor's companion, Sarah, and Brett is just completely forgotten about. Is it because Brett didn't technically do the old-fashioned rule of a companion where you travel in the TARDIS, and is that why they never?
Well, there's possibly that, and the fact that he doesn't look quite so foxy in that black outfit.
Oh, Gene Marsh. Gene Marsh. Man. But oh gosh, I'm all over the place. I should have prepared better. But getting back to Mission to the Unknown, like if we're looking strictly at the visuals, there's a scene where the two guys, Mark Corey and and Lowry, they're working on the ship, and one asked to be handed give me a wrench or pass me that wrench, and what they show visually is a plumber's wrench, a very obvious 20th century thing that you would use to fix a water pipe, and it kind of took me out of the moment, because I was like, you wouldn't use that to fix a high-tech rocket. But then I began to think this was BBC in the 60s.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that is what they used. Maybe they did use plumbing tools. And then I was thinking, well, stupid me, the Daleks have a freaking plunger on them. So it makes sense to have a water pipe wrench in a story with Daleks. And so I almost like to think that was that was something that they did on purpose, the loose cannon people. But I don't know. I may be giving them too much. But
I think it's one of those stories that there's no. Usually in some of the older classic stories, you perhaps get the odd duff actor or just a character that doesn't really work very well. But this one, I think, right across the board, everyone's really knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
I think Peter Purves is quite an underrated companion.
Something
as Stephen.
Something also. This one of the reasons this story feels so epic is it seems like every individual episode, except for the last two, has a ton of secondary characters that are really, really good, and they really feel developed, and they usually only last for like one episode, like in that first.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it feels like there's a lot more at stake because even companions can be killed off in this story.
Yeah, spoiler, but yeah. but like even in that first episode, the nightmare begins. You've got those two people at the Earth headquarters. I think it's called, what was it, Lyzan and Rold or something. And they're basically at their office job, but they got the big TV on, and Mavic Chin is making a speech, and they're sitting there arguing about sports and about which space car is the fastest. It's these little touches that make the universe feel a lot more populated, like a lot more human. And people don't feel that, the secondary characters don't feel that cardboard cutout, especially in these early ones. And I absolutely love that. And just these little character touches, And I also wrote down that one of the best Billy flubs ever is in that first episode. Brett Vyron gets the key to the TARDIS and forces his way in, and Hartnell's mad and he's pacing, and he sees that he has left the key in, and the doctor says, brains, or brawn rather, versus brains. I've got you, Pete, from the start, And he flubbed it, but it's absolutely charming. I love it.
That's one of the nice kind of extra bonuses if you really get into Hartnell, who it's possibly slightly harsh to enjoy it in a way because the poor guy was ill, but there are some very entertaining slips of the tongue.
But it's I think he takes this aspect of his performance, though, that he knows that he has to deal with, and he makes it part of the character, though. So I actually love it,
yeah.
And
I think you've got with something. This is 12 episodes.
Yeah.
Or 13 if you want to include the cutaway
Mission
as well.
to the Unknown.
Yeah. But it doesn't really feel like it drags.
No.
In my opinion, anyway. I don't know whether you've found that or not.
No, it's and I think a lot of it is because there is this overarching theme where they have to get rid of this time destructor device, but each episode kind of has its own kind of mini thing that they have to get through every week, and there's this air of tension that kind of hangs over the whole thing, and you wouldn't think that it would be able to draw it out through 12 episodes just through the audio, but it somehow does. I mean, there are peaks and valleys, obviously, but and again, I just whenever I think about the whole thing, I'm amazed at the cast, at the number of people in it, and you had just mentioned how Steeman comes off really, really well.
Yeah.
I like Katarina a lot. I like her acting. I can't remember the name of the actress. Do you know who she is? Or
oh no, I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
We'll just call her Katarina. But
yeah.
And Loose Cannon, bless their hearts, they used the 2 or 3 pictures of Katarina to as best as they could, in the little slides. But she really comes across as just a great soul. I love the scenes with her and the doctor talking together, and just the way he keeps telling her that he's not a god, and he completely trusts her. And this is only after one episode, and like that part where she is getting the tablets from Brett to help Steven, and she's looking at them and she's like, "Are these tablets?" I could honestly believe that she was someone from ancient times who would have no idea what that is. And
I feel a bit sorry for the actress because I think she does a pretty decent job, but I think she's saddled with this character that is so out of her time that obviously the people in charge decided that this really wasn't going to work out. So
I think it was a bad decision because you can actually see her growing. She accepts things. Like by episode 3, she's helping the doctor create the trap, trap to defend the ship. It isn't like, and I had always heard that was one of the reasons why they got rid of her. So I was kind of expecting her to be a little bit more whiny or annoying, but she's really good, and especially in the recovered episode 2. Do you remember the part where they get Zeph on and they take off his cloak?
Yeah, they tie him up, don't they?
There's that really quick scene. You see her retching and turning away from the look of this alien, which she has never seen.
Yeah.
And it's just a really good acting moment, I think. Instead of having her just standing in the background quietly, not doing anything, being very Tegan-esque, she's actually, and I mean, Jamie was from a different time period, and he got on fine.
Yeah.
So.
We won't mention Victoria.
Oh, Father, oh, Victoria. I think another reason why this story works, and you touched on it earlier, is that the Daleks, they don't need Davros. They don't need some malevolent supercomputer. They're evil. They're cunning. They're manipulative. They're just, oh my gosh. They're actually...
You've got the whole political intrigue as well going on, because you've got Mavic Chen, who's trying to sort of play both sides off against each other and come out on top.
Oh, it's great.
Because he's the guardian of the solar system.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. And he's supposed to be sort of protecting Earth and its surrounding planets, but he's secretly in with the Daleks to try and take over. But at the same time, he's got his own plans to kind of take them out once the victory's been achieved.
Oh my gosh!
And then you've got this council of weird aliens who've all got their own sort of little agendas as well.
Something about them which you get from looking at the existing episode 2 is the actors who are playing the aliens. They're making them move in weird ways, like that one.
There are some interesting choices going on.
Yeah, and I was thinking, good on them, because that is a cheap, effective way to make them seem not human.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have an awful lot of money to spend on their costumes, so they had to do something to make them appear a little bit more otherworldly.
Oh my gosh. And it's funny because they obviously, if you look at the production photos from Mission to the Unknown, and compare them to the visuals that we can see in episode 2 of Master Plan, they were changing the delegates' costumes. Because the one character, Transis, in Mission to the Unknown, he's got these little leech things hanging off of his face. And so loose canon, they just assumed, well, that's how he looks. So through every episode, they have the actor with these little leech things hanging off of him. But then you see episode 2, and the production team obviously thought, that leech thing isn't working. Let's just take them off.
No one's going to remember from last week. They're never going to see it again.
Yeah, they're only taping this with sound recorders. They're not going to know that.
But there's a precedent for that later, isn't there? 'Cause I don't know if you've seen the Ice Warriors.
Yes.
You've got the sort of the main costume that kind of changes throughout the story.
Yeah. The helmet is different, which I always found weird and funny. But that reminds me. There's this great scene where Carlton, the second in command to Chen, who's a great character in and of his own, they're talking about how they're going to take over from the Daleks, and Carlton says, well, surely Transis will be second in command. And Chen basically says, Transis? They don't even like him. and I was thinking, that's probably because he's got leeches all over his face. And the Daleks don't like him. Oh, gosh. Okay, I'm trying to look through some notes. I swear, people listening at home, I was so excited to do this. I took copious amounts of notes, and I'm just going all over the place. I'm covered in Post-it notes right now. But, something else I liked. The introduction. Okay, we mentioned that after Katerina is dispatched of, they bring in the new girl, Sarah Kingdom, who comes in murdering Brett Vaughn. I love the way they introduce her. You've got Chen and Carlton talking about her, but they never use personal pronouns like he or she. But the way they're discussing her, you're led to believe that she's going to be this big burly man. And then the camera and then she comes in and the sexy saxophone music starts playing.
It's very, very reminiscent of Emma Peel from the Avengers.
I've never seen that.
Oh my goodness!
Good stuff.
If you like 60s TV, then you've got to check that out.
Oh, are they existing episodes?
They all exist.
They all exist.
They all exist.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, I'm definitely doing that. I'm writing that down.
But yeah, it's a similar type of character. You've got this kind of very attractive young woman in a very form-fitting costume who's quite a proactive character, because a lot of 60s female sort of ancillary characters tended to be screamers who fell over and twisted their ankles a lot. And
oh, really?
Just generally were there to be captured by an alien and then rescued. Whereas she, frankly, kicks ass.
And never breaks an ankle ever when she is kicking said ass, right? Never.
No.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, okay. I'm kind of going forward here. So we got to episode 5, and you've got the invisible aliens, and it's another great Terry Nation name, the Vizians, because you can't see them.
Yeah, he's got a habit of doing this, hasn't he?
Absolutely love it. But, okay, the next episode after that, episode 6, is Coronas of the Sun. I don't know what that episode title is referring to. Do you?
No. No,
Yeah, it's a weird one, but I got to say, this might be my favorite episode out of it. To remind you what happens, it's the one where they take over the Dalek ship, and Steven gets that force field put over him. And
yes, yeah.
There's so much action in that, in the beginning and in the end, and it's one of those times where I was just begging Philip Morris, please find this episode, because I just know this is going to look good. But to give Loose Cannon a ton of credit, they did such a good job, because they're using the CGI Daleks moving. It's a really good effect.
It does work really well.
That gosh, okay, one of my and there's this really great part. Like, okay, the Doctor, Sarah, and Steven, they put the mud in the Dalek's eye stick. They get on board the spaceship, and they're trying to take off. So they're like, turn on that switch, check, get the fuel up, got it, and it's taken a really long time. And as they're doing this, the Daleks are outside, and they're furious, and you can just. And the funny thing is, you can just hear them barking orders to each other, and they're all like, "Okay, everybody, line up, Carl, straighten up your gun stick. Can everybody see the target? Okay, now on the count of 3, we're all going to fire, right? 3, got it? Okay, does everyone see it? Larry, get up there." And they're back there barking orders to each other, like, and it takes forever, and then they finally get off, and I want to see this so bad.
Well, you never know your luck. That it might be amongst some episodes that may have turned up or may not have.
Oh, I know. And also, one reason I like this particular episode, hello there, Tom, is it's probably got what I think is one of the best moments of the entire 12 episodes. There's a scene where Chin and the Supreme Dalek are having this argument, because Chin was supposed to get the Tyranium back, but the Doctor took it, and then he got transported to Myra, and so he came back to tell the Daleks that he did that on purpose, because that...
Yeah, that's right.
And to
trap them.
And the Dalek Supreme is not buying it, and he's furious, and he says, "You make your incompetence sound like an achievement." And... that is such a good piece of dialogue. That's a perfect example of how Daleks in the 60s had so much character. And you compare that to a Dalek in the 80s or the
It's
70s.
also a very good analysis of how a lot of politicians do their job.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the Dalek is picking up on this. I mean, these Daleks are not like robot soldiers. They're absolutely cunning and manipulative. I love it. And then whenever the Doctor steals that Dalek ship, Chin turns on the Supreme Dalek and starts criticizing him back.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, so you had the gall to criticize me," and the Dalek is trying to talk, and Chin keeps cutting him off. He's like, it is. So you're saying it is not an emergency, and you just see him fuming. I love it.
I think you gradually see Chen become more and more crazy as the thing goes on, don't you?
Yeah.
By the end, he's just like, I mean, he was a megalomaniac from the start, but he loses all touch of reality by the end of the actual story.
I guess the point we're trying to make here also is, if these were the type of Daleks that were still being written this way in the 70s, they would not have gone back for Davros every single time. They didn't need Davros.
No.
Oh, geez. Philip Morris, find this, please. Should we talk about Feast of Stephen?
Yeah, that's a weird one in itself, isn't it?
Oh, but I love it. I can't help it. I love it.
It's just such an oddball, isn't it?
Okay,
but I think it sets the tone for a lot of the Christmas specials that we get now. They're something other, aren't they? You know what I mean? Though?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the story is that the way the production schedule fell, Christmas happened to be on that Saturday, so they were like, "Hey, let's just have a goofy old fun episode," and it's great. And again, it's full of CGI. And like they had to do a CGI to recreate the police station and a lot of the composite shots and the paper doll stuff. And it's just really funny. And okay, Mark, I have to ask you this. You are an Englishman.
Yeah.
What does the phrase "it's a fair cop" mean?
It means that you realize you've done something wrong and you're not going to try and bluff your way out of it. You're going to accept that you've been caught.
Okay, that makes sense. I have always heard that phrase, like the old Monty Python shows. They would say that constantly, and I've never really been able to get the context clues to tell me what that means. And
but it's a real kind of slapstick comedy runaround, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh my God! And there's a scene where the doctor has been brought in to the head policeman's office to explain what's going on. And I'm thinking he's really come a long way in 2 years, because he's there telling this guy that he has a time machine. He's like, that police box is a machine for investigating time and space. And just 2 years ago, he freaked out because Ian and Barbara had broke into it and he kidnapped them. And in that time, he has mellowed out so much.
I think he had to, really, didn't he? Otherwise, I don't know. I can't see how the show would have gone on, really, because I think he couldn't have had that character be that abrasive for that long. I think he just would have switched off after a while.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful stuff. And then they go to Hollywood.
Yeah,
they
run into Bing Crosby as well.
They go to America. Yeah, Bing Crosby and Charlie Chaplin and all that. And I see, and this is one where there's so much running around and back and forth that the still photos really, I mean, you can definitely tell that you're not getting the whole package here. And this is
if you try listening to it on audio, it's even worse.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just
But there's a moment where the doctor is mistaken to be an expert in Persian myths or something, because they're filming a Arab love scene, and he's telling the actress that she needs to put some more clothes on because she's sitting there halfway naked. And I was thinking, what if instead of landing in 1920s Hollywood, they had landed in like now Hollywood? Like say he had landed on the set of Transformers 3. What would he have said to that?
Put some clothes on.
Megan Fox, put some clothes on.
Write a script that makes sense. Don't make a movie that's just effectively just two robots smashing the hell out of each other for an hour.
Yeah, he's like, done that already. It was called The Chase, and it was amazing. So,
The Chase.
Oh. But then they go to episode 8, Volcano, where we got the monk.
Yeah. Oh.
Who is this actor?
I love Peter Butterworth.
Okay, is he someone who was well known and well loved? I only know him from The Monk.
Okay, well, Peter Butterworth was the guy that played the monk. In the UK, there were a series of comedy films called the Carry On films.
What is that?
They were kind of like bawdy comedies, so you wouldn't see anything too over the top, but you'd have young ladies with ample bosoms and things like that, and it would be sort of like it kind of gets described as seaside postcard humor. So you get these sort of naughty.
Oh, is it like a Benny Hill type of thing? Maybe.
Similar.
Okay.
Similar.
Because I have seen that where they're running around with the buxom babes. Okay. So he was that
in the
guy.
in the very first Carry On film. The lead actor was one William Hartnell.
Really? And
it's called Carry On Sergeant.
Was he telling them all to get some more clothes on, or was he?
Well, it was called Carry On Sergeant, and he was up until that point fairly typecast in roles of sort of authority figures, and he had a bit of a run of playing soldiers.
Yeah.
So he plays a sergeant in this, and he doesn't take any crap from anyone.
So was getting back to the Monty Python. Every now and then Graham Chapman would show up in a Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart outfit, and he'd be like, "Stop this! Stop this!" Was he basically doing Hartnell from that? Time?
No. I think they were doing their own thing there.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, getting back to Peter Butterworth, he was probably best known in the UK for being in quite a few of those movies. They had like an ensemble cast, so you'd have a lot of the same actors coming back, but with guest actors coming in.
Okay.
So he was probably best known for those, as he was known as a comedy actor.
Oh, did he do anything else, or was he like?
Nothing that really springs to my mind, so
Okay.
I may be doing him a terrible disservice. But
I could definitely see him in these Carry On things, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Were the Carry On films made before the
Sort
Doctor
of
Who
similar
stuff?
sort of time, really. Similar sort of
okay.
time, early to mid '60s and onwards.
And-
They kind of became a parody of themselves by the end. But yeah, there's some great. It's quite an eccentric British sort of humour.
Oh God.
Not in the same way as Monty Python. It's not that out there. It's just.
Right.
But yeah, there's some great. They tended to do spoofs. So they had one called Carry On Cleo, which was a spoof of Mark Antony and Cleopatra.
Okay. Huh.
So you have an actor called Kenneth Williams, who was a bit of a legend in British comedy.
Was he ever in Doctor Who?
No, sadly, he was very camp, and he plays Caesar, and he comes onto the stage. He says, "Infamy, infamy! They've all got it in for me." And yeah, there's loads of great lines like that. So yeah,
I respect that. I respect that stuff.
Yeah, no, they're great movies.
So, do you think? Okay, I'm guessing they brought back the monk because Dennis Spooner was writing this. And that was his thing.
Yeah,
and he wrote the Time Meddler.
That's right.
I just think it's really interesting that they thought to add him to the mix, and
yeah, it's an unusual choice.
It's cool because I don't think they had ever brought back someone before. I mean, besides the Daleks, obviously, but had they ever? I don't think they.
I don't know. I think it's also a bit of a foreshadowing of the sort of thing you'd see the Master getting up to, as he'd kind of team up with a bunch of aliens to try and achieve a sort of conquest or something. Although in this one he's more kind of doing it under duress, isn't he?
Yeah. But it's funny because I think it's kind of a brilliant thing because if he was the first person that was ever brought back, the kids watching it at the time wouldn't have known that is an option. Like now. We see somebody shady wearing a little short beard. We're like, oh, it must be the Master. But back then, because no one had ever been brought back, they would never have thought. So there's that part in the episode where the Doctor and they're in the TARDIS and they're fleeing. He's got his little time tracker screen thingy, and he's saying that there is a time machine following him, and he just assumes that it is the Daleks. But we know that the Daleks haven't called for their time machine to come in yet. So I'm wondering if kids would have been able to figure out who could that be following them.
I think obviously because it's a time machine, you can kind of give a little bit of leeway of thinking, oh well, they haven't set off yet, but because it's a time machine, they can kind of set off whenever they like.
There's no timey-wimey in 1960s Doctor Who. Come on.
But yeah, I guess they kind of sell it as, oh well, it must be the Daleks.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, to have him turn up is quite a nice little twist.
Oh, absolutely great. And I got to say, I think that the Doctor using his ring to fix the TARDIS, where did that come from? That get out of jail free card if I ever saw one, man.
Yeah, that
convenient.
It's different. I'll give you that.
Because
Yeah.
okay, through the fan recordings and through the existing episodes, I've seen every episode of the Hartnells. He's never used the ring for anything before that, and he's never used it for anything since then. So it really seemed kind of convenient in a weird way. I don't know.
Yeah. Where's the sonic screwdriver when you needed it?
Oh, geez. And okay, then they eventually end up in Egypt. And you know how earlier I was saying how they have a lot of great secondary characters in most of the episodes? The Egyptians are kind of more cardboard.
They are a bit
cliché.
one-dimensional, aren't they?
Yeah, so, but there's still some good stuff. Oh, my favorite part of episode 9 is the doctor breaks into the monk's TARDIS.
Yes.
And tell them what
He's
happens.
got previous with this, hasn't he? Because in the Time Meddler, he changes the monk's TARDIS, so it's tiny on the inside, so he can't get back into it.
But this time, because there are 2 time machines there and the Daleks are chasing him, he's going to try to throw off the Daleks. So he goes in and he activates the monk's chameleon circuit. And so you get this montage of the monk's TARDIS changing into these different things. Like it didn't it turn into like a tank and a plane.
Yeah.
And
It turns into a horse-drawn coach.
yeah. And I watching that scene, I was thinking, the doctor probably could have went to the button and made it turn into a police box instantly. But I'm thinking that because his personal chameleon circuit didn't work, he was just having fun playing with it, Lovely. Oh,
It also makes me think of Attack of the Cybermen as well. Colin Baker's Doctor decides to have a go at fixing the chameleon circuit.
I think they did it better here, though. I gotta say.
I think they did.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but and okay, I don't understand how the Doctor overpowers the monk in the crypt. The monk is twice his size.
He's quite although he's a bit thin and wiry, he's obviously got super strength.
Okay, I can buy that. Sure, he has a magic ring. Why can't he have super strength?
Exactly.
But the monk's character in this is so good. Like I love when he's walking around the pyramids and he's supposed to find the doctor, and he's just doing a muffled doctor. You see, he's not even here. It's just so good. And okay, I did wonder as I was watching the recon, why is he still in monk clothing?
Yeah, maybe it's some kind of kink that he has. Maybe, I don't know.
Huh. Okay, I could see that.
Some kind of fetish.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah. If Colin Baker can wear a dumbass patchwork quilt coat, he can wear a monk habit, sure.
Yeah, definitely. I like the monk because although he's technically a bad guy, I think you do kind of feel for him a bit, and he is quite a lovable character.
He feels like a big kid, basically.
Yeah.
He's just he's not even. And again, that's something else about this, which makes this story feel so epic, is you don't have these cardboard cutout cliched characters. The monk. I mean, granted, this is a kid show, blah blah whatever, but people are written with such shades of gray and again, Sarah, the companion, kills her brother before she joins them, and it's. Like, I don't think that would fly today.
There's a lot of sort of political intrigue and people double-crossing each other.
Oh, my God. Oh, there's a great line later on when Chen tries to take over the Galactic Council, and all of the other delegates are going, but we are all equals in this. And Chen's like, some of us are more equal than others.
Someone's been reading Animal Farm.
Someone named Dennis Spooner. So
yes.
Oh gosh, but anyway, it gets to the end. I'm breezing through my notes, man. Episode. Okay. I had one question about episode 11. Usually, when a doctor is missing from an episode in these early ones, he had a vacation day or something. The doctor is in the beginning of episode 11, and then he just vanishes. So I'm thinking, do you think he maybe got sick during
I don't know, because I know towards the end of his run, he wasn't very well. So I'm not sure what the explanation is for that. Maybe he was just on holiday, but yeah,
it's just weird because he's definitely there in the beginning, then he just vanishes. So I don't know if he, broke a hip or what. He just left. But oh my gosh! But anyway, okay.
But they pull out all the stops in the final episode. The tension is incredible.
Even with no visuals, it's just. Oh my God, the soundscape for this episode.
Yeah.
Like the noise that they have for the time disc.
That is awesome. I want that as a ringtone.
Isn't that great? And just the background of like the wind blowing and all that. And there's just something about the way, like, what's his name? Kevin Stoney?
Yeah.
Okay, his acting when he's just raving. When he goes...
He just goes for it, doesn't he?
And he confronts the Daleks, and he's raving, and he's like, I am in control, you are not. And the Daleks are not saying anything. They're just standing there staring at him. And I kind of like to hope that if this ever is found... That is what the Daleks are actually doing in the actual visuals. They are just sitting there and staring at him. Because it's so creepy. They are just basically letting Jin rant and rave. And it's just... they're so cool about it, And again, these are not the 1980s robot Daleks that we're going to get later. These are...
No.
And then whenever the Doctor shows up, and he steals the time destructor. You can tell that the Daleks are really freaked out. They are genuinely scared of what the Doctor is going to do. Like the Doctor tells the Daleks to do something, and the Supreme Dalek is like, "Do as he says." And you can just hear it in the performances. Like you can just hear them twitching and wanting to shoot him so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, great. There's a lot of good CGI work here. Loose Cannon did a really good job on this one. And, you got to talk about it. Sarah's death. What do you think of that?
Oh, God, that is just... Oh, it's horrendous, isn't it? I can't imagine. I mean, you see a still shot when because she effectively ages to death.
Yeah.
And it's really... pretty gruesome. You look at the still shot. I don't know how it would look on, when you actually see the moving image, but it's pretty grim.
This is a kid's show, remember?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And like Loose Cannon did something where they had a sleeve of the jacket and they made it look like Sarah's uniform. And they kind of had white powder in the shape of a hand because she was disintegrating and turning into dust. So they specially filmed this little film clip where you see this powder in the shape of the hand getting blown away by the blowing wind, and it is so effective. And
it's that attention to detail, isn't it? That makes them stand out from the other recons.
So good. And again, this is why this story is so epic, because this ending pays off so well. There is no quick solution. Problems are not solved with a simple throwaway line of dialogue. There is a definite price. There's a definite cost. I
really like that Stephen really questions the Doctor as to what he's doing.
Yeah. Like at the very end, Stephen is just listing off the names of everyone who had died. Stephen says Brett, Katerina, and Sarah. In Stephen's mind, Brett is a companion, is a friend who is needlessly killed by Sarah again. And there is nothing fun about the ending. There's nothing comfortable about the ending, and you can actually. This is one I want to see because I think William Hartnell's acting must have been really good. I mean, you can hear it in his dialogue, how weak he is, how and then Stephen comes out of the TARDIS and pulls him in to safety, and the Doctor says, "Thank you, my friend." He didn't call him Stephen. I have never heard the Hartnell Doctor sound more grateful. The way Hartnell delivered that line.
He's quite humbled in the end, isn't he?
Yeah, good word. Yes, humbled. He is so grateful and just it's so genuine, you know. It was Philip Morris, get on a boat, find us. Oh, have I rambled on too much about Dalek Master Plan? I could go on.
I think it deserves it. It's a great story. It's a great story.
It's so good.
So yeah, if anyone out there was gonna try a recon for the first time, I think that would definitely be my vote for the most impressive one.
You can also get there are 3 episodes that are existing, 2, 5, and 10.
And that helps a lot, particularly with the longer stories like that. You know, it can be as good as the recons are. It can be a little bit hard going. So to have a bit of respite and have some moving images, is nice.
It's also good that the ones that do exist are kind of spaced out evenly. So it really gives you a feel for just how different the story got as it went on. And
talking of different, what on earth is going on when they're in that matter transporter?
You mean when they're
William
jumping
Hartnell's face going all over the place? And
yeah,
that's just bonkers.
But you know, Stephen and Sarah, they're on a trampoline to.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm just guessing that Hartnell was like, "I'm not getting on that." They should have.
Well, he'd probably do himself an injury if he did.
They should have recreated that scene for the adventure in time and space and time. You know, like have David. What's his name? David Bradley.
Yeah.
You know, like have him going. I'm not getting on that trampoline. Screw you. I am a legitimate actor. I do not jump on a trampoline. Oh, you want to talk about another one? Or
yeah.
Okay, what do you want? We got Mythmakers, Space Pirates, and Power of Them There Daleks.
Oh, it's so hard to choose. I mean, we could
totally do a part 2, man. I mean, we could go on for hours.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing I'd say about the Mythmakers, I think you tend to... The versions you managed to get hold of, somebody had spliced the audio from the CD version onto the loose cannon production.
Yeah.
And the version I watched of the Mythmakers was the kind of loose cannon original.
Okay, yeah.
And one thing I would say is, obviously, because these things were originally audio recorded from the TV onto a cassette or onto reel-to-reel, then they've been transferred onto videotape, and I imagine they're several generations down the line. The audio, because it hasn't had that attention that the BBC are able to give it, it's a bit wobbly to the point where it almost sounds like a comedy. Well, it is. I mean, it is a comedy. Right. It's obviously a comedic story, but it's like the music that's supposed to bring tension back in sounds almost like some kind of clown music. It doesn't help.
Well, yeah, the version that I heard was it was one of those ones. Some people on YouTube take the loose cannon images and they'll marry them to the official BBC audio narrated sound tracks, and I like that version a lot because it really helps with the moments where there's not any kind of dialogue happening, you know. But yeah, you're right. The audio from the straight loose cannon sometimes can be a little down because they're using the fan recordings that haven't been cleaned up. So
I think the Mythmakers stands out because it's quite an early example of a comedy episode. I know we had the Romans as well, which was
who wrote this?
A little bit before that.
Was this Donald Cotton who wrote this?
Yes, I think so.
And he did the Romans too? No, he did the Gunfighters.
No. Yes, that's
right. Okay.
I always get him and Dennis Spooner mixed up.
Yeah, I did too. Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe
I like their stuff a lot.
Name beginning with D. Yeah, they're both very funny guys. But yeah, they do something very clever. They take the original myths from the whole. You've got the whole thing with the Siege of Troy,
right?
But they play on it. So although they're still relatively accurate to the way that the myths wrote these characters, they kind of twist it slightly so that you get a slightly different version of what you were expecting.
Oh, I think when I had first read about this story, like, okay, I did the thing that every Doctor Who fan does. I somehow got I got my hand on a episode guide, and I would look through it like, oh, Dalek's Master Plan, that sounds great. I can't wait to see that. And then you find out that it's missing. So all I had at first was just little paragraph summaries of what each story was, and said the myth makers, they go back to the Battle of Troy and all that. And the way I first heard about this story, I just assumed it was going to be something more like the Highlanders,
like a dry historical.
Yeah, and I imagine that the characters were going to be played like, kind of like the Atlanteans are played in the Time Monster. Just very stiff dialogue and just believing that, oh, these are gods, we must worship them. But this is just great. The Mythmakers is amazing.
It's quite an interesting way of doing it. It's quite a knockabout story for the majority of it. And then right at the end, it just kicks you in the teeth with a really horrendous ending.
I think...
it's coming, but it's just pretty brutal.
I think that ending is so much more brutal because all of the characters in the first 3 episodes are not really shown to be thuggish and bloodthirsty. They're just a bunch of wacky people. But then they're suddenly murdered, and you're like, oh, I really like Priam, and why did Paris have to die? That's amazing. And so let's give a big hand for implied rape on a kids show too.
Not for the first time.
The grand old tradition of 1960s Doctor Who. But
Terry Nation did it first, I think.
It's an interesting title. Now, obviously, they didn't call it the Mythmakers. That's something that was given in retrospect.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, most titles for Doctor Who, the title either refers to the place where they're at or the enemy who they're going to fight.
Yeah.
The Mythmakers is actually referring to the Doctor, Stephen, and Vicky. They are the ones who are there, and it's through their actions that these myths get actually created. In fact, in the very first episode, whenever Vicky finds out that they're in ancient Greece or Troy or wherever, she gets really excited. She's like, oh, we can meet the heroes. Yeah. And because she has obviously heard these myths and heard these great stories, so she's really excited to see what these wonderful people are like, these heroic deeds and all that. And then she gets out of the TARDIS and she gets to meet these people, and we get to meet these people, and they're all kind of just regular guys who don't want to be there, or they're a little bit wimpy, a little bit wussy. And I'm thinking that at the very end, Vicky stays and she tells Troy, let's, we can go and we can build a new Troy. I think Vicky is the one who told the stories of what happened at Troy, but she didn't like the way it actually happened. She was more impressed with these big heroic epics that she had always heard. Yeah. So she's the one who tells everyone that Achilles is this great warrior, and that Odysseus was this cunning sly dog, and really they're just basically like drunk bikers. It's so good.
The thing with 60s TV, well, certainly watching old Doctor Who, is it kind of translates more, it's more akin to watching a theatre play in many respects than watching something like modern TV.
Yeah.
And I love that. Part of the appeal of watching old Doctor Who is it's kind of like a way of representing how TV was made back then. And on a nerd level, I find that quite interesting.
Oh gosh! So, what did you think of the? Now, again, this is a story like Dalek's Master Plan, where they did not have any tele snaps.
Yeah,
I think they
did pretty well with what they had.
The only existing pictures I think are Achilles and what is Paris's brother fighting? Was it Hector maybe? But they're both wearing helmets, so you can't see their faces. And then there's a picture of Priam and Vicky looking at each other, and that's it. And so,
and there's that brief video clip, isn't there, of Vicky leaving the TARDIS?
Yeah. And so they had to do the thing where they get the pictures of the actors, and they find Roman or Greek costumes. They put the heads on those, and it's really well done, I think.
It must have taken a lot of time and effort.
Oh, yeah.
To do that. I mean, I would freak out if I had to. I mean, you can imagine the man hours that went into putting that together.
Oh, gosh. But, just getting back to the actual characters, I love how they're not what you would see in a cliched Hollywood movie about the Trojan War. You know?
No, they play on that, don't
Yeah.
they? They
There,
invert
there
it.
are no Brad Pitts. You know, like the guy playing Odysseus. Who is that? Is that a famous actor? Or
I'm trying to rack my brain now.
well, he may not be then, but basically, he's like a screwed up Santa. You know, he's always laughing. He's kind of tubby. He's kind of body, you know, but he isn't like this big hardened warrior. He's kind of like I don't know how you would describe him, but he's hilarious. Him and the doctor together are some of the best scenes, you know, because the doctor is trying.
Now, Hartnell gets a lot of stick for, perhaps not always being on the ball, but I think he's really good in this.
Oh yeah, especially in episode 3 when Odysseus is trying to make him, he is telling him, "You think up a good way to win this war for us," and Hartnell is just clutching at straws, and you can hear him enjoying it in his performance, and oh my gosh, and but my favorite character in the whole thing has got to be Paris. How would you describe his performance, his character? It's very, I say there, father, how are you today? It's very upper class twit.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if that's a sign of the times back in the 60s.
Was it really? Okay. Like, because he is the guy who you would expect to be played by Brad Pitt in the Hollywood thing.
I think things had loosened up a bit by that point. I mean, certainly in the early 60s, there was still a lot of the sort of received pronunciation, which was the very plummy. Everyone was very posh on the TV.
Okay.
You didn't have regional accents and things like that. Whereas I think as time goes on, they gradually kind of loosen up on that.
I just love how he's not threatening, he's not snobby, he's not stuck up. He comes off as this little dumb guy, but he says really smart things. Like okay, Vicky's trying to convince them that she is from the future. Paris's sister is Cassandra, who's this seer, the high priestess, and she's like, "How dare you?" By the way, that is
she's not overly impressed, is she?
That is Cassandra's catchphrase. She says it in at least 3 episodes. How dare you? It's always dare, And
I have to say, I found her a bit annoying.
yeah, but the great thing about her is everyone's talk smack about her to her face. It's amazing. Yeah. Like she's telling Vicky, "How dare you profess to say the future?" And Paris tells her, "Well, come on, Cassandra, you're always going on and on about it. Why can't someone else?" and then he calls her to her face a fortune teller of notorious unreliability, and that is such a good line. And
in your face, Cassandra.
Even her dad tells Vicky to not worry about her, and he says she always says the gloomiest things. I expected some sort of insurance and takes in case things do go wrong, and then she can say that she was right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
She must have really loved her family.
Oh, yeah. Well, she gets to survive and go to the rape camp. Good for her. Kid show in the 60s. Love it.
How are we doing for time? We're nearly an hour and a half.
Oh.
We've got to talk about Power of the
Okay.
Daleks.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. I have one more note about Mythmakers, which just thrilled me. I was like... They do the bit where Priam doesn't like Vicky's name, so he gives her a different name on the spot, and that
Cressida.
Why doesn't that happen to more companions on the show? Like, what is your name, Adric? I don't like that name. We're gonna call you Earl instead from now on. Oh, great. Okay. Power of them, their Daleks.
Yes.
How good is this? How freaking good is this?
It's awesome. Even just audio on its own, it kicks butt.
Oh my!
It is. I think it's the Daleks at their best.
Isn't it?
I think for a first story for a Doctor, I think it is. I personally think it's head and shoulders above any of the others.
I cannot get over how good the characters of the Daleks are in this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were saying how in the Daleks master plan they come off as contrived, or not contrived. I'm sorry, they come off as scheming and cunning.
Yeah.
There's so much character in the Daleks.
Yeah.
In this. You never get that ever.
No, it's a shame.
This is the high
It's a
point
shame.
for them. I mean, they just.
And this is written by David Whittaker, I think, rather than Terry Nation.
Yeah. And
I don't know whether that has something to do with it. Maybe
it might. What else did he do?
he was script editor in the very early days. I'm trying to remember the other stories that he did, but he'd written a few stories by this point.
But I'm guessing that's why
He was a safe pair of hands. I think that's why they chose him for this.
Well, he was a great pair of hands for this because he gave more character to the Daleks here. Than I mean, I really love how the '60s Daleks. You get the feeling that there are actually little alien blobs in there. You know, they are not like monotone robots. There's so many good lines that the Daleks say in this. It isn't just your typical 1980s exterminate. What does Davros want us to do? Blah blah blah. They don't need Davros. If these Daleks were being written this way in the 80s, they would not have to keep coming back for him. I mean, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, oh jeez, they have.
I think it's quite an interesting show to look back on, just because it's the first time they've changed the lead actor. So you got this whole thing. I think it's quite a quick process, really, from him being a bit disoriented from the transformation, and then within not that long, he is the Doctor.
Yeah, and the funniest thing I think about this is you can tell that this is the Troughton Doctor. I don't get that impression in the Highlanders, or even in Underwater Menace. It's like the character devolves for some reason in the Highlanders, and it's this kind of scaredy cat character who's lazy. It basically, the way Troughton plays it in the Highlanders is not a character I would easily recognize as the Doctor, opposed to Power of the Daleks, which is perfect. Oh my gosh.
I mean, it makes you wonder what was going through his mind when you land this job and you think, what on earth am I going to do with it? You can't try and ape what Hartnell did before, so he's got to come up with something original. And
it's like if the Highlanders had came before Power of the Daleks, I would think that okay, obviously he's trying to find the character, he's trying to find his feet.
Yeah,
it's so weird because in Power he's got it perfectly, and again, we don't have the first episode. Forget 10th Planet episode 4. I just want the first 10 minutes of episode 1.
I'm greedy. I want the whole thing.
And it's funny because you could tell that whoever was doing the 8mm film clip, they knew that this was a big deal. So there are several little clips of him after he has changed and he's getting up and all that, and it's so teasing. It's such a tease, Mark.
Yeah, man. I know. I really like Ben and Polly as well. I think they're, again, rather underrated characters. It's possibly because a lot of their stuff doesn't exist.
It's really interesting because they don't choose, or the production team, they didn't really choose to explain what was going on. So it's Ben and Polly who are having to work it out for themselves, And I really like how Ben is pretty much angry at the Doctor because he won't explain what has happened, and it's you can tell how frustrated he is. Whereas Polly is like, I've seen lots of crazy stuff now. I'm just going to go with it, And gosh, I by the way, I really love that moment when Troughton is going through the trunk and he gets that hand mirror, and he looks in the mirror, and for a second, you get Hartnell's face, and then it comes back. And I was thinking, I kind of wish they would have kept doing that throughout the years. Like Pertwee looks in the mirror and he sees Troughton for a second, or Davison looks in the mirror and he sees Tom Baker looking back. That would have been cool. But I think, well, actually, you know what? Now that I say that, Can you imagine in the 2005 episode Rose that scene where Eccleston is looking in the mirror? If it had shown McGann looking back, that would have ruined Stephen Moffat's whole John.
Continuity would have gone completely out the window.
John Hurt thing would have been out the window.
But there's some lovely moments in this story. I like. He finds the what do they describe him as? Is it the inspector or something?
The Earth Examiner.
The Earth Examiner.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
So he finds the body of this guy, picks up the ID, gets his nice big badge and sticks it on, and like you say, it's very much that kind of second Doctor vibe.
Yeah,
He's quite happy. He strolls in like he owns the place, and he's happy to kind of go along with it. You know there's something going on in the back of his mind that he's working stuff out. But yeah, I mean, I love Troughton.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's mesmerizing whenever you see him on the screen.
You know, I was going to say this earlier. Loose Cannon, they do such a good job at showing you what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I think that Troughton recons will always be a little bit inferior to Hartnell's because so much of Troughton's character was through his performance, through his visual performance. And Hartnell was he kind of had his set things, you know, and so you can kind of, even when you can't see Hartnell, you kind of got a good idea of how he's probably playing it, how he's saying his lines. Troughton constantly surprises you. And just like when we got back Enemy of the World and Web of Fear, the best parts of it was seeing how Troughton was saying these lines that we had been hearing over these years. So I think that the recons for Troughton stories are always going to be a little bit less because we don't know what kind of brilliant things he's actually doing there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think have you seen the most recent recovered episode of The Underwater Menace?
I did actually, yeah.
Yeah, that's got some great little moments there.
And again, it was something where I had been hearing the soundtrack. I'd seen the recon for it, and it was like watching something completely different. I had no idea he was doing these little movements with his hands, his facial expressions. So good.
He does that little thing where he knocks his head and makes that sort of hollow noise to try and make out that Zaroff is completely nuts. It's brilliant. Just little moments like that.
Oh my gosh! And
that's what it's all about.
I'm sure that if we could see the scene just in the beginning when he's fumbling through the trunk, I'm sure there would have been just great little things like there's that Super 8 clip where he's looking in the mirror and it cuts back to him and you see him kind of stretching his face. I just picture him acting like a toddler who's learning how to walk or something. Oh my gosh. Find this, Philip Morris.
Poor guy, give him a break.
Oh my gosh. But this is one of those ones where I didn't, something about the story I didn't understand why they had to have rebels. What was Governor Hensel doing that was so bad that inspired a rebellion movement? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't look like people were living in huts. It didn't seem like there was strife and poverty. It didn't seem like Hensel was ordering guards to shoot people for no reason. What was the big deal? You know?
Well, certainly in the 60s and definitely in the 70s, there was a lot of strike action in the UK. So,
okay.
Maybe they were just reflecting the times. I don't know.
Oh, that's great. That's great. But again, I don't think we've ever seen the Daleks better acted than in this episode. You know.
Well, so much so that they borrowed from it heavily for Matt Smith's first Dalek story.
Oh, yeah. Have you finished your liquid? Just, and that great line. Why do human beings kill human beings? You know, the basically fast forward to episode 5 or 6, the security chief Brigham gets a Dalek to assassinate the governor. And the Dalek just flatly asks him, why do human beings kill human beings? And if this had been a Dalek from the 70s or the 80s, he would have been a robot and monotone, but there's so much going on in
There's real
this
character
Dalek's
there, isn't
head. Yeah, there's so many good lines. Like there's that scene later on where the Daleks are laying cables to create a static circuit, and one of the scientists asks them, "Why do you need to make your own static circuit? Can't you just keep using the colony's power?" And the Dalek says, "With static power, the Daleks will be twice as useful." You can just picture the little blob inside the caisson laughing to himself and rubbing his claws maniacally.
And of course, you got that famous line in this, "I am your servant."
Oh God, it's so good. And then something else I appreciate about this, is Lesterson's character. In the beginning, he's very sure of himself. He's mad at the Earth Examiner / Doctor, who seems to have this prejudice against these machines that he has found. And slowly, as the Daleks start manipulating him and getting more materials from him, getting more energy, he slowly starts to doubt what's going on, and that doubt turns into concern, and by the end it turns into flat out panic, and then he is just completely lost it by the end. And that scene before he gets shot, and the Daleks are like, what are you doing here? And he's just completely out of it. And he's like, "I am your servant." Yeah. and then he says that great line where he's like, "You won't kill me. I gave you life." And the Daleks were just, "Yes, you gave us life." Bang. They have never been this scary, Mark. Wouldn't you say?
No, they're badass. They're manipulative. They're scheming. It's
God.
It's everything you could possibly want from a Dalek story.
And I swear, there's that famous interview with John Nathan Turner where he's berating fans, saying that fans look back at the '60s with rose-colored glasses.
Yeah,
suck it, J&T. This is amazing. I mean, and at the very end, when the Daleks are just massacring everybody, I kept thinking about Resurrection of the Daleks, and how all those deaths felt meaningless and kind of just people getting killed
gratuitous
for the sake of getting killed. And I was just thinking, this is how you show an alien massacre. It is so unsettling. Like, did you catch that? There's a part where it sounds like a baby is actually crying. Did you catch that?
Well, we have our own version of that here in our household.
I swear I wasn't talking about Tom, but it's in episode 6, and it's right before the.
I must have gone right by me.
It's right before the Doctor switches on his device that's going to make all the Daleks explode, and you hear this baby crying.
Oh,
a Dalek says "exterminate," and then they all start blowing up. I don't know if that is in the actual show or if it's one of these things where the guy who recorded it back in the '60s, maybe he
had a crying baby.
Yeah, maybe he had a crying baby in the back. But whatever it is, it hits perfect, and it's so bizarre, and it's creepy, man.
I think you're right in what you're saying. It matters more when you see this massacre because you've actually gotten to know these characters over those episodes, and you care what happens, and
they're written well.
It has more of an impact.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, and. Oh my God, I got so much to say and I just don't know where to begin, man. It's so good. How about like you've got that Janley character who is manipulating Lesterson because she's trying to do the rebellion and use him, and Resno gets killed, and so she's using that as leverage against Lesterson. And then when the rebellion is over. And she goes and tells her leader, Bragan, the rebellion is over. We've won. Hensel's reign of terror is over, blah, blah, blah. Bragan tells her to go and kill all of her fellow conspirators. And you can just hear it in her lines, how she's suddenly like, oh, crap, what just happened?
What have I let myself in for?
And, Sayward could never write that kind of crap, I'm telling you.
Don't get me started on Sayward.
Oh, man. We need to come back and do a Sayward episode, man.
Very briefly, we must touch on the Space Pirates because it's not it would be unfair of us to paint a picture of outstanding excellence all the way through. So for you to appreciate the good, you must also witness the not so good.
As good as Troughton was in his very first episode, he really seems tired in this one.
Yeah, I think that's why he quit.
Which is funny because in his last episode, okay, this is his second to last episode. Mm-hmm. His last episode, the War Games, a 10-episode epic, another epic that pays off pretty well. He awesome. Doesn't seem tired there. You know, he seems energized, and I have a theory. I'm thinking that Troughton showed up for work, getting ready to do episode 1 of the Space Pirates. He's all excited. It's his second to last story. He's going to bring it just like he always does. He gets the script for the Space Pirates, and he sees that it's written by Robert Holmes. And he was probably like, oh, crap, it's that freaking Crotons guy. This is going to be terrible.
Yeah, because Robert Holmes, he just fell away from there, didn't he? He didn't write anything of any...
Absolutely, but...
decent quality from there
at the time, the only thing that Troughton had to judge him on was the Crotons. So
fair play.
He was like, "All right, I'll do this, I guess." Because now
Ben, you're a damn Yankee.
Damn, very much damned. Yes.
Milo Clancy.
He
one of your countrymen.
You know. Him and that Captain Hopper from Tomb of the Cybermen. I've got little effigies. Why doesn't Character Options make a Milo Clancy and Captain Hopper for me to put on my shelf?
It's only a matter of time.
Oh, it's yeah, it must be. But you know, there's a scene in the existing episode 2. There's a line of dialogue that Milo Clancy says, which I think is a perfect example of my feelings about the Space Pirates. It's when he's making his breakfast. And his toast starts burning. And he says the line, rubbishy, newfangled solar toaster. And it's like the most unlikely melding of British jargon and American jargon, merging this slang together that nobody would ever actually say. So it's a perfect example of nice try, but it doesn't really work. You know.
Well, I think you'll find, Ben, actually, that have you seen the remade version of True Grit?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh my goodness. Well, the characterization of what's the guy's name? The main guy in it.
The John Wayne guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the new version.
Who's not John
Wayne?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. He's the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Oh, Jeff Bridges?
Jeff Bridges,
okay,
yeah. He based his entire performance on Milo Clancy, I'm sure of
Really?
It. Yeah. You can't understand half of what he's saying. It's amazing.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, but I think the point I was trying to make was he says rubbishy because he's British. But he's saying this very cliched, old-timey Western, tarnation, newfangled. I expect him.
Hey, look.
I expected him to say, "Gosh darn, galoot" at some point, and just.
Look, we did it this once, just with a one-off character. It's not like we had a companion that was completely wrong and tried to make out they were American or anything.
Far out, Doctor. Yeah, that was great, man. I also think it's funny how he complained rubbishy, newfangled solar toasters. He actually did capture the essence of an American, because right now in America there's this big debate about solar power, and by and large your average American doesn't really want solar power. So even back then they knew how we actually think.
They were ahead of their time.
You know, his character gets really hard to listen to at the very end, because you've got Milo on the spaceship doing all his darnation, tarnation, cricker, cracker, biscuit, cracker, you know, going on. And then you got the old guy, the Don Isley, who's basically going, you know, and so you've got and cricket, croaker, tarnation, and it goes on like for 10 minutes.
Ben, is there any redeeming features of the space pirates.
Yes.
Is there anything you can turn around and say, well, actually, this was pretty
There
good.
was a great moment in episode 2 where Zoe is kind of leaning on the banister, and she's got her hinder kind of put in a certain way. And that is the shot that Loose Cannon chose to cut out and sort of keep repeating over and over in the next episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think of it? What do you think of it? I'll sit here and try to think of something really good. You go on.
This was the first time I'd actually sat through the Space Pirates completely. I hadn't listened to the audio beforehand.
Is it because it was kind of hard to get through? Did you give it a try?
Well, I'd heard all sorts of stories of it's painful and it's it's hours of your life that you can't get back. And maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment. I didn't find it horrendous, but yeah, it's pretty slow.
Well, think of it this way. We were just talking about how all of the actors in Dalek Master Plan are just hitting it out of the park. All the actors in The Mythmakers, so good. Power of the Daleks. I feel like the quality of the actors aren't that good in this. Like that General Hermack guy, he's terrible.
Yeah.
Like, just the way he delivers his lines. We are going to be late again! And it's terrible. And the Ian character is... I guess he's supposed to be a macho, hard, tough guy, but he's just... Oh, my God, it's bad. And, and it's funny because there are actually some funny lines that the Doctor and Jamie have, because, it's the Doctor and Jamie. But even they feel a little bit forced. Like there's that scene where they fall down to the pit, and the Doctor's trying to open up the audio lock, and Jamie is questioning if he landed on his head or on his the other end, and it just feels a little bit like. For one thing, this is the second to last episode. By this point, Jamie should have a lot more confidence in the Doctor, but he's acting like the Doctor is someone who constantly fails. And then there's that line where the Doctor... Okay, I'm sorry. Here's the one good moment. They are in another locked room. This is a very Scooby-Doo plot, by the way. They're just running around, getting locked up, escape, run around, escape.
Yeah.
They're in the conveniently Victorian room that has never been opened for 20 years, where they hid the girl's dad. And the Doctor is trying to get out, and Jamie is again expressing concern over his mental ability to get us out, and the Doctor says, Jamie, sometimes I don't think you appreciate all that I do for you. And it's one of those moments where I think Troughton probably played it great, and I want to see that. But again, it just feels slightly off, and which is ponderous to me because War Games is so good.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a video on YouTube which somebody has posted. It's quite sad, really.
Yeah.
It's somebody used their camcorder to record Patrick Troughton's final appearance at a convention in the States.
Really? I know that he died here.
Yeah. He's doing a Q&A session.
Yeah?
And it's really nice to watch, but it's also very sad because you know that night he passes away. So it's quite emotional to watch. But they ask him what's his favourite story. Guess what his favourite story was?
You're kidding.
I am not kidding.
Really?
Really.
Did he say why?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember it vividly thinking, the Space Pirates?
It must be
really
maybe in the green room, or they had a lot of fun rehearsing. Like, I have a feeling that he probably would have liked the actor who played Milo Clancy. I'm sure they probably got on. And it's funny because it seems like the Doctor and Jamie aren't really in it much. So maybe he has fond memories of it because he didn't have to do as much.
He's probably pretty exhausted by that point.
Or maybe he was just thinking, like, I'm going to say the most unexpected thing that you would ever want to say.
Well, he certainly did that.
But now that I've kind of seen it, now that you've kind of seen it, it makes me wonder why the Dominators get so much hate. Because I would watch the Dominators.
I like the
over
Dominators
this any day, man.
I must be some sort of weirdo, but I like the Dominators.
This is just so slow. And, I just feel like everything is wasn't done with everyone's heart in it. Even the costume people, like that military costume that the guys in the AV ship are wearing, like General Hermack, he has those two rank insignias on his neck, and they're all pointy. They're like pointy metal.
Yeah, they're like fridge magnets, aren't they?
They look very, very sharp.
Or like a car badge.
Yeah.
It's like he was preempting the Beastie Boys.
So I'm like, that spaceship is one photon torpedo blast away from him getting those stuck into his neck and killing him. And just, but okay, the worst thing is you've got the TV on the bridge, and it's very obvious it is a TV. They didn't even try to put like a fake frame on it.
No, it's just a bog standard cathode ray tube TV.
Which is really strange because the set actually looks good from a different angle. There's an angle in episode 2 where Milo is walking on to the bridge, and you see the bridge looking forward, and they got that huge big radar screen. It looks really, really good, but throughout episode 2, they shoot it from the angle that's looking at it from the side, where you get that TV, and it's a shame because Loose Cannon would keep going back to episode 2 to get screen caps to show out throughout the rest. So you don't get that really great angle looking forward throughout the rest. It just makes it feel.
No, it's a shame.
Oh my gosh.
We don't want to end this on a negative note,
We
do
shouldn't.
we?
No.
So, how would you try to encourage someone to try a recon if they haven't before?
Honestly, I would encourage them to buy the BBC official narrated audio and listen to that first. Because if you are the type of person that really enjoys like a audio drama, a radio, a radio play, get something like the Myth. No, actually, get Power of the Daleks or Daleks Master Plan. Listen to that first. And if you find yourself being able to really get into the story, then go to the Loose Cannon recon, because to watch the recons, you've really got to be invested in it, or you're going to get very bored very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So that's would be my
maybe
advice.
if you collect the classic series DVDs, there are 1 or 2 recons on some of the DVDs. So if you get the special edition of the Aztecs, there's a recon of Galaxy 4.
That's a really, really good one. That's a great one, actually.
Yeah.
What did you think of the recon for Web of Fear, episode 3?
I thought it was solid. I mean, unfortunately, we get spoilt by Loose Cannon by seeing the sort of CG and that kind of things. But I think, unless I'm mistaken, it was Derek Handley who was previously with Loose Cannon that did that recon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something I've noticed is because actually the BBC put out a MP3 disc of their attempt at a recon of Power of the Daleks.
That's right.
And
it didn't really take off.
It didn't, and I think it's because the BBC felt like they had to use only images from that story or only the telesnaps. So it felt very much like a slideshow. There wasn't a lot of stuff. Like Loose Cannon kind of has the freedom to.
Yeah, they can get creative.
Absolutely. Like if there is a scene in the TARDIS and they don't have any telesnaps of that scene, they're like, well, we can go to these existing episodes where they're in the TARDIS and get caps from that, and they can do different angles. Like Loose Cannon will do the very simple trick of taking a photo of someone's head and then flip it back, do like slow pans over it just to give it a sense of movement. And I felt like the official BBC one, like
they missed a trick, really, didn't they?
Yeah, like in Web of Fear, I almost felt like they felt like they had to stay with what they had and they couldn't really go outside of the box. So, but
no, I'd agree.
Oh my gosh!
So there you have it, Reconstructions.
Which one?
They're out there.
Which one do you want to watch next, Mark?
Oh goodness, I'm gonna go pretty off-piste. Actually, I'm gonna suggest The Smugglers. I
like that one. I like it a lot. Have you ever seen it?
I've heard the audio, but I haven't seen the recon. So that could be next.
It holds together really, really well. It's better than the Highlanders, I would say, and it's the story wise, script wise, very good, lovely.
Excellent. Now, Ben,
Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Please do. Yes.
We do this to all our guests that come on the show. I'm going to ask you for some recommendations for our listeners. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be Doctor Who related.
Really?
But is there something that you have enjoyed recently that you'd like to recommend?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, you are putting me on the spot.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell the listeners what I've been enjoying.
Please
and
do.
while I'm
Okay.
doing that, you can have a little think.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. In case you haven't noticed, there's a bit of a background sound going on that you won't have heard before, because between the last episode and this one, I've become a dad.
Yay!
So,
all right. All right.
So yeah, you may hear the occasional little cry here or there.
And I'm just guessing that you named him Patrick Troughton Cochrane, right?
Actually, Patrick is his middle name.
Oh, okay.
Now, on the Blue Box podcast, J.R. Southall was very mean. He put me on the spot and said, well, what's your son called? So I said, Thomas Patrick. And he said, and who are your two favourite doctors? And I said, well, Tom Baker and Patrick Troughton. Now, that is pure coincidence. Pure coincidence.
Subliminal coincidence.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in between nappy changes and sort of general looking after the baby, I've managed to fit in season 2 of American Horror Story, which is American Horror Story Asylum.
How do you like it?
It's awesome.
Really? Because
have you seen them?
my wife watched the first series, and she kind of fell off of it. She didn't really like it towards the end.
Okay.
But the second one is good.
It's
Okay.
they stick with a lot of the same cast, so it's like a repertoire sort of company that they have, repertory company. Sorry.
Okay.
And but they have a few sort of guest actors coming in, but they have them playing different characters, so it's not the same character that you would have seen in the previous series. And it's set in an asylum in the 60s, and Jessica Lange is just awesome.
Really? Okay.
She deserves every plaudit, and the rest of the cast are really good as well. But yeah, it's a bit freaky in places. So if you're really not into sort of horror and that kind of stuff, it may not be your thing. But there's a lot of humor in there. I'd say it's almost like a soap, but a sort of heightened reality soap, like an ongoing drama. It's really compelling viewing, and it's got some real cliffhangers, going back to the whole Doctor Who thing. You've got the end of episode, you think, oh my god, where are they going to go from there? So yeah, I definitely recommend that. And the third season is currently showing in the UK. I think we've got a couple of episodes left, which is called Coven. That's another different set of stories again, which is really, really exciting to watch. So I definitely recommend those.
Okay, I've got mine, and I don't know why this didn't occur to me, especially since we were talking about Milo Clancy here. My wife is a huge fan of Joss Whedon.
Okay, yeah.
For some reason, she had never seen the series Firefly.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe that. So we've been watching Firefly on Netflix, and she is absolutely loving it. And I keep telling her, get ready to have your heart broken.
I was going to say, is she asking you what's going to happen in season 2?
Well, I told her straight off, it's amazing and you have to watch it, but it's going to make you mad. It's going to make you so mad. And we actually did watch the last one of the actual series last night, and she was really upset but we are going to watch the movie later on.
Serenity.
And I've already told her. I haven't told her why, but I've told her it's going to make you mad again for a different reason. So, but it's funny. I was saying how Milo Clancy is supposed to be an old timer Western guy in space. It didn't really quite work on Firefly. It works.
Yeah,
it's the American West in space, and if I could go a little bit beyond that, I actually think that the characters in Firefly are the best examples of what I would call everyday normal people who live here, like outside of my front door. That is actually how people act. And it's funny that it is in a science fiction show set in the in the future, but I have never seen that on American sitcoms. I rarely see it on regular dramas. These are actually people that I recognize and I actually know. So that's why I like it a lot. Yeah.
I was expecting you to come out with the $10 million Bigfoot bounty.
You know, my friend Dave, who's on the Tower of Technobabble, we'll get together every week and we'll watch stuff to get ideas for the podcast. He's put his foot down. He refuses to watch.
He's put his big foot down.
Oh, thank you. You can tell I'm getting tired here. Wow, that's great. No, he refuses to watch anymore. He just threw up his hands and was like, I am done. No more. I'm sick of this Bigfoot crap, and just literally.
Now here in the UK,
crap.
we don't have this show, or not that I'm aware of. Maybe it's on Sky or cable or something. I've seen a few clips, and it's interesting TV.
I guess yes.
Do you want to sell the premise very quickly?
Basically, right now in the Americas, the concept of Bigfoot is the big money-making thing on cable for some reason. Back in the 90s, it was UFOs. They were all the craze. Back in the aughts, it was the ghost shows, where cable would have these ghost hunting shows just everywhere. Today, it's the Bigfoot shows. And their great idea was they were going to get 9 teams together, and in 9 weeks, they were going to find Bigfoot. And whoever can find Bigfoot at the end of this 9 weeks will win $10 million. And the teams that they have assembled are so desperate to find anything, to find any kind of evidence. They are literally bringing in, what can I say? What's a good word that I can say here?
Fecal matter?
They are literally bringing in fecal matter that they find in the forest as evidence. This is Bigfoot fecal matter. Give me my money. And they're literally bringing in fecal matter. The show should be called Finding Fecal Matter because they're not finding Bigfoot.
And how many weeks is this scheduled to go on for?
About 9 or 10. So, because there's 9 or 10 teams, and everyone gets like one team gets kicked off. Whoever has the worst evidence gets kicked off.
So if you don't find Bigfoot, you get kicked off.
Exactly. Or
I
evidence.
can see a problem here somewhere.
And my favorite part of the show is at their base camp. They have a giant 9-foot tall cage with a chain and this old timey pad lock on it, because that is where they're going to put the beast at the very end. It's going to be amazing. So, what do you in England think of us here in America when you see things like that? I gotta know.
Well, I think we're all kind of grown up enough to know that you're not all complete and utter loonies. We have our fair share of those over here. We call them eccentrics.
See, you have a nice word. You can call people eccentrics. Here we call them insane rednecks that just covered in fecal matter. What can you do? I'm telling you.
Ben, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show.
Mark, thank you so much. I had a ball. If you ever want to get together again and just talk about that, I could talk for hours, as you probably know. Thank you so much.
I would love to do that. We'll do that sometime.
America loves Nerdology. You heard it here first.
Hooray!
Oh, poor little Tom getting on the podcast.
I know, yeah, he's trying to make his debut.
He's probably
I might
saying,
have to do some...
Space Pirates isn't that bad. My voice will be heard.
No, I think it's the mention of the Space Pirates that just tipped him over the edge.